What happens when a moment of bitter prejudice on a plane, 35,000 feet in the air, collides with a life-changing interview on the ground? A woman named Caroline Beaumont, flying first class, saw a black family in the cabin and sneered, "Flying like lottery winners." She assumed they didn't belong. What she didn't know was that the family she insulted held the key to her entire future. She was flying to the most important job interview of her life, and she had just sealed her own fate before the plane even landed. This is a story of how fast karma can fly. The first-class lounge at LAX was a high-strung symphony of stressed-out privilege. Men in expensive, untucked shirts barked into AirPods, while women with surgically identical faces sipped complimentary champagne as if it were a chore. It was into this sterile, anxious environment that the Williams family walked, an oasis of calm in the chaos. Marcus Williams led the way, a tall man whose bespoke suit managed to look comfortable, not constricting. He carried a worn leather briefcase in one hand and held the hand of his 10-year-old son, Leo, in the other. Behind him was Dr. Elena Williams, her hair in immaculate braids, her eyes scanning a medical journal on her tablet. At her side was Maya, 16, and already possessing her mother's sharp, observant gaze, her phone in hand as she documented their travel day for her vlog. They were, by any visual measure, a portrait of success. Marcus was a senior partner at a prestigious architecture firm, flying to London to oversee the new European headquarters his team had designed. Dr. Elena Williams was, quite simply, one of the top pediatric neurosurgeons in the world. She wasn't just going to London. She had been summoned to perform a procedure so rare, so complex, that only 3 surgeons on Earth were qualified to even attempt it. They found a quiet cluster of leather seats. Leo, excited, pulled out his own tablet, while Maya swiped at her phone. Elena and Marcus spoke in low, professional tones, a mix of medical terminology and architectural jargon. Their quiet was abruptly shattered. "Are you kidding me? No. No, Richard. That is absolutely unacceptable. I am on my way to London to close the biggest deal of my career, and you're telling me the Brussels office fumbled the presentation slides? Fire them. Fire all of them." The voice belonged to a woman in a sharp, white pantsuit. This was Caroline Beaumont. She paced the lounge like a caged panther, her blonde hair pulled back into a severe ponytail. She radiated an aura of frantic, brittle energy. She snapped her fingers at a bartender. "Another verve, and don't be slow about it," before turning her sights back on her phone. The Williams family exchanged a brief, weary glance. It was the look, the one that said, "Here we go." Caroline ended her call with a dramatic stab at her phone screen and huffed into the seat directly opposite them. She immediately began to spray the air around her with a small bottle of sanitizer, glaring pointedly at Leo's tablet, as if the sound of his game was a physical contaminant. "Some people have no consideration," she muttered, loud enough to be heard. Elena Williams looked up from her journal, her eyes neutral. "Is there a problem, Mom?" Caroline flinched, as if surprised to be addressed. "Just the noise. This is supposed to be a lounge, not a daycare." "He has his headphones, Mom," Marcus said, his voice deep and steady. "I believe you'll find your phone call was significantly louder than his game." Caroline's face, pale under expensive foundation, flushed a deep, angry red. She opened her mouth, then closed it, seemingly realizing she had no retort. She grabbed her champagne, downed it in a single, unladylike gulp, and snapped, "Whatever." The boarding call for American Airlines Flight 108 to London Heathrow was a welcome relief. The Williams family, holding priority boarding passes, gathered their things. Caroline Beaumont, also in the priority line, pushed her way forward, cutting in front of a startled elderly couple. She managed to position herself directly behind the Williamses. As they walked down the jet bridge, Caroline's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and a rare, genuine smile touched her lips. It was an email from HR Bryson Global. Subject: Your interview. Confirmation. Dear Ms. Beaumont, we are so looking forward to your final round interview for the VP of European Operations position tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mr. James Bryson himself will be leading the panel. Good luck and safe travels. This was it. The job she had killed for. VP at one of the fastest growing, most prestigious global conglomerates in the world, Bryson Global. The name itself was a password to a new life. She beamed, feeling untouchable. She stepped onto the plane and turned left into the first-class cabin. She found her seat, 3D. As she settled in, she watched the Williams family move past her. Marcus and Leo sat in 2A and 3A across the aisle. Elena and Maya settled into 2B and 3B directly in front of her. Caroline's face soured. Them? In first class? All four of them? Her mind, steeped in a casual, ingrained prejudice, tried to compute this. It was one thing to see them in the lounge. It was another to see them taking up 4 prime pod seats on an international flight. It just didn't add up. She leaned over to her seatmate, a man already buried in the Wall Street Journal, and whispered, "Can you believe it? The whole family must have hit the lottery." The man just grunted, not looking up. Caroline scoffed, put in her own earbuds, and signaled for a pre-departure mimosa. The tension was a coiled snake waiting to strike. The first few hours of the flight were smooth. The Boeing 777 was a quiet giant, slicing through the darkness over the Atlantic. The cabin was hushed, a curated environment of clinking glasses, noise-cancelling headphones, and the soft glow of personal screens. The Williams family had settled into a comfortable routine. Leo, after a meal, had fallen fast asleep, his face peaceful in the dim blue light of the cabin. Maya was watching a movie, her own blanket pulled up to her chin. Marcus had his laptop open, the blue-white light of architectural drafts reflecting in his glasses. Dr. Elena Williams, however, couldn't rest. Her mind was already in London, in the operating theatre. She was reviewing the complex MRI scans of her patient, a 7-year-old girl with an inoperable tumour tangled in her brain stem. Inoperable, they had said. Elena was flying 5,000 miles to prove them wrong. Her focus was absolute, a bubble of intense concentration in the manufactured calm of the cabin. In row 3, Caroline Beaumont was not calm. Her interview at Bryson Global consumed her thoughts. This wasn't just a job, it was an ascension. It meant power, a corner office overlooking the Thames, and, most importantly, a salary that would finally make her friends. In Greenwich, see her as an equal, not just the scrappy overachiever. But it also meant she was terrified. Her confidence was a performance, and it required fuel. For this flight, that fuel was champagne. She had consumed 4 glasses since takeoff. The alcohol didn't make her sloppy. It made her sharp in her own mind. It honed her entitlement into a weapon. She unbuckled her seatbelt to use the lavatory. As she stood, the plane hit a minor pocket of turbulence, and she stumbled, catching herself on the high wall of Maya's pod in 2B. Maya looked up, startled, and pulled out an earbud. "Sorry," Caroline slurred, though her tone held no apology. She continued past them toward the lavatory, her eyes sweeping over their seats. She saw the sleeping child, the teenager with her movie, the man with his blueprints, the woman staring intently at her. Was that a brain? It was all too much. The quiet, the confidence, the belonging. It didn't fit her worldview. The alcohol and her own deep-seated insecurity bubbled up, mixing into a toxic, venomous brew. On her way back from the lavatory, she paused, her hand gripping the top of Marcus's seat in 2A. He didn't look up, assuming she was just steadying herself. "It's just unbelievable," Caroline said, her voice a loud, piercing whisper that cut through the cabin's hum. Marcus finally looked up, his brow furrowing. "I'm sorry?" Now she had an audience. Elena looked up too, her concentration broken. Maya paused her movie. Caroline gestured around, a sweeping, dismissive hand. "This, all of this. You people." Elena's eyes narrowed. "You people? Oh, come on," Caroline sneered, the champagne making her bold. "I saw you in the lounge, ruckus with the kids, and now you're all spread out up here. It's just so surprising to see your kind of people in first class. It's not like it's Coach." Marcus set his laptop down slowly. "Our kind of people?" "Yes," Caroline's voice was rising, drawing the attention of other passengers and the cabin crew. "People who aren't used to this. You're flying like lottery winners, on a shopping spree with your winnings. It's just tacky." The insult hung in the air, thick and poisonous, flying like lottery winners. It was the assumption that their presence wasn't earned, that it was a fluke, a lucky break, that they couldn't possibly belong in this space through their own merit. Maya, quick as a viper, had her phone in her hand. Hidden beneath her blanket, she pressed record. Elena Williams unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood up, slowly, to her full height. She was shorter than Caroline, but in that moment she seemed to tower over her. "My kind of people," Elena said, her voice not raised, but cold and lethally precise. "Please enlighten me, Mom. What kind is that?" You know what I mean," Caroline stammered, her bravado faltering slightly under Elena's direct, surgical gaze. "No," Elena said, taking a step closer. "I'm afraid I don't. Do you mean people who work? Because my husband and I work very hard. Do you mean people who are parents? Or perhaps," she lowered her voice even further, "you mean black people?" The cabin was now deathly silent. Even the man with the Wall Street Journal was peering over his paper. I never said that," Caroline gasped, clutching her pearls, though she wore none. "You're putting words in my mouth. You're the one being aggressive." "I am not being aggressive," Marcus said, standing up now as well, a bulwark of calm anger next to his wife. "I am asking you to explain why you felt it was appropriate to address my family with such unadulterated contempt. Or are you just drunk?" A senior flight attendant, a man with a kind face and a name tag that read David, rushed over. "Mom, is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice firm, directed at Caroline. "Yes," Caroline shrieked, pointing a finger at Eleanor. "This woman is threatening me. I made a simple observation, and she's accusing me of being a racist," Maya said, her voice cutting through. "Because that's what you're being." "You," Caroline snapped, turning on the teenager. "Put that phone away. You're not allowed to film me. I am a Platinum member. I'll have all of you fired." David stepped between them. "Mom," he said to Caroline, "I need you to return to your seat. Now. This is unacceptable. I am being harassed by this family." "No, Mom," David said, his patience snapping. "You are the one creating a disturbance. You have insulted passengers 2A, 2B, 3A, and 3B. Return to your seat, or I will be forced to inform the captain. We can and will have you met by authorities upon landing in London." The threat of authorities finally broke through Caroline's champagne-fueled haze. She looked at the faces staring at her. the flight attendant's stony mask, Marcus's righteous anger, and Elena's cold, terrifying poise. She had lost. With a final venomous glare, she spat. "You'll regret this. You have no idea who I am." She turned, stumbled, and fell back into her seat, 3D, pulling the privacy divider up with a violent slam. David turned to the Williams family, his face etched with apology. "Dr. Williams, Mr. Williams, I am so profoundly sorry. Is there anything at all I can get you?" Elena took a deep, shuddering breath, the adrenaline finally hitting her. She sat down, her hands shaking slightly. "No, thank you, David. It's fine. We just want to get to London." Marcus sat too and put a hand on her arm. "It's not fine, Elena, but we will deal with it." From under her blanket, Maya's thumb hit the stop button on the recording. The video was 45 seconds long. The audio was crystal clear. The rest of the flight was a 6-hour exercise in animosity. Caroline Beaumont did not emerge from behind her privacy divider. She didn't order more drinks. She sat in the dark, her mind racing. The alcohol was wearing off, being replaced by a stinging, self-righteous anger, followed by a creeping, cold dread. What if they complain? The flight attendant, David, had used her name when he apologized to the family. "We will be logging this incident, Ms. Beaumont," he had said to her partition wall. "Your behavior was noted. This couldn't happen. Not now. Not with the Bryson Global interview hanging in the balance. What if the airline filed a formal complaint? What if she was put on some list? She needed this job. She deserved this job. She tried to reframe the incident in her mind. She was the victim. That woman, that doctor, had been aggressive. The husband was menacing. The girl was illegally recording her. They had trapped her. They had goaded her. It was their fault. She opened her laptop and connected to the plane's painfully slow Wi-Fi. She needed to focus. She pulled up the Bryson Global website. The home page was a rotating series of images: sustainable energy projects in Africa, new tech hubs in Singapore, and a gleaming, modern children's hospital wing in London. The caption read, "Bryson Global, building a better world together." Caroline practiced her answers. "My key strength is management. I'm a roll-up-your-sleeves kind of leader. My vision for the European market is aggressive, results-driven." She would not let one half-drunken, misunderstood comment derail her. She would get this job. She just had to hold it together. A few rows ahead, the Williams family was dealing with the fallout. Leo was still asleep, blessedly unaware. Maya was vibrating with teenage indignation. "I'm posting it," she whispered to her mother. "I'm posting it right now. I'll tag American Airlines. She'll be viral before we even land." "No," Elena said, her voice firm. "What? Why not?" "Mom, she was racist. She called you. Ooh, she said that thing. Everyone should know what she is." "Maya, listen to me," Elena said, turning in her pod to face her daughter. "You are right. What she said was vile. But a social media storm is a wildfire. You can't control what it burns. It will consume her, yes, but it will also consume us. I will not land in London to perform the most difficult surgery of my career as the star of a plain racism viral video. I am a doctor. I am not a hashtag. But it's not fair, Maya argued. She just gets away with it. Marcus leaned over from his own seat. She won't get away with it. Maya. But we will handle this on our terms, not on hers and not on the internet's. That video, that is your mother's evidence, should she choose to use it. It is not entertainment. Maya scowled but nodded. Fine, but I'm sending it to you. And to Dad. She tapped her screen, and the video file transferred. Marcus, meanwhile, was also on the plane's Wi-Fi. But he wasn't looking at blueprints. He was composing a text message. It was a simple, encrypted message to a single contact. Recipient: James B. Message: landing LHR AA108, 1:30 p.m. Had an ugly incident on board. A passenger, Caroline Beaumont, seat 3D. Racist remarks. All fine, no physical threat, but Eleanor is rattled. Just a heads up. See you at arrivals. A moment later, a reply came back. From James B. Message: I'm so sorry, I'll be there. I'm bringing Simon. We'll handle it from the second you land. Just focus on Eleanor. See you soon, brother. Marcus pocketed his phone. He looked over at his wife. She had her eyes closed, but she wasn't sleeping. Her brows were furrowed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Elena, he said softly. I can't get her voice out of my head, Marcus, she whispered, her eyes still closed. Lottery winners. I know. I've been a surgeon for 20 years. I did my undergrad at Harvard, medical school at Johns Hopkins, my residency at the Mayo Clinic. I have published 40 peer-reviewed articles. I am flying to this city, at their request, to save the life of a child. And that woman looks at me and sees a lottery winner. She doesn't see you, Elena, Marcus said, his voice a soothing balm. She sees a stereotype that lives in her own small, poisoned mind. Her words have nothing to do with you, and everything to do with her. I know, Elena whispered again, but it makes me so tired. Then rest, he said, reaching across the small gap to take her hand. Rest now. You have a big day tomorrow. Let me and James worry about Caroline Beaumont. Elena squeezed his hand, a silent thank you. She put on her noise-cancelling headphones, put her eye mask on, and forced herself to seek the quiet darkness. She had to compartmentalize. The insult, the woman, the flight. She would put it in a box. Right now, only one thing mattered. The little girl waiting for her at Great Ormond Street Hospital. The plane flew on. Two women, separated by an aisle and a universe of experience, raced toward a future that was about to change for both of them. The chime for landing preparations was a welcome sound. The grey, rain-slicked landscape of London suburban sprawl came into view through the windows. The flight had been long, fraught, and exhausting. As the plane touched down at Heathrow with a gentle bump, Caroline Beaumont was already reapplying her lipstick and checking her email. She was transforming back into the consummate professional. The flight was over. The incident was forgotten. Her interview was in less than 24 hours. The plane taxied for what felt like an eternity, before finally pulling into the gate at Terminal 3. The fasten seatbelt sign pinged off. Instantly, Caroline was on her feet, grabbing her carry-on from the overhead. She was pushing into the aisle, desperate to get off first, to leave the Williams family and her own bad behavior behind her. Then, the pilot's voice came over the intercom, and his words froze everyone in place. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to London Heathrow. We are pulling into the gate now. We ask that all passengers please remain in your seats. All passengers. We have a special request from ground staff. Please remain seated until we give the all clear. Cabin crew, prepare for arrival. A ripple of annoyance went through the first-class cabin. Caroline let out an audible, "Ugh, you have got to be kidding me." A moment later, David, the senior flight attendant, walked down the aisle. He stopped at row 2. Mr. and Mrs. Williams? Elena and Marcus, who had been patiently waiting, looked up. Yes, David. We've been instructed by ground control. You and your family are to be escorted off the plane first. Please gather your belongings. You'll be met on the jet bridge. Caroline Beaumont's jaw dropped. Them? Escorted off first? After their behavior? She seethed. This was reverse discrimination. They were probably being arrested, she thought, with a sudden, vicious surge of hope. Yes, that must be it. They were being taken in for threatening her. She watched, her eyes narrowed, as David unlated the main cabin door. The Williams family, Marcus, Elena, Maya, and a sleepy, confused Leo, walked to the front of the cabin. David nodded at them. Again, my sincerest apologies for your flight. Thank you, David, Marcus said, shaking his hand. You handled it well. The family stepped out of the plane and onto the jet bridge. Caroline, craning her neck, watched. Waiting on the jet bridge were not, as she had hoped, two brawny police officers. Instead, there were two men in impeccably tailored, dark navy suits. One was an older, distinguished-looking man with greying hair. The other was a man in his late 40s, with the same sharp intelligence in his eyes that she had seen in Eleanor's. The older man stepped forward, his hand extended. Dr. Williams. Mr. Williams? I'm Simon Croft. I'm the Director of Operations for Heathrow Airport. On behalf of the airport, welcome to London. We have a private car and an expedited diplomatic channel for you. We'll have you through customs in 5 minutes. Caroline, who could still hear everything, gasped. Airport director? Diplomatic channel? But it was what happened next that stopped her heart. The second man, the younger one, smiled warmly. He bypassed Simon Croft, bypassed the handshake, and stepped directly to Eleanor, and he hugged her. A long, tight, familial hug. Eleanor, you made it, he said, his voice full of relief. He then turned and gave Marcus a one-armed, brotherly embrace. Marcus, I'm so sorry about the text. Are you all right? We're fine, James, Elena said, her voice weary but lighter, leaning into her brother's embrace. We're just tired, I'll bet, James said, his eyes hardening for a second. Well, you're here now. We'll take care of everything. He then crouched down. And who is this? You must be Leo. I'm your Uncle James. I've heard so much about you. Uncle James. On the plane, Caroline Beaumont's blood had turned to ice. She knew that face. She had studied that face for weeks. It was the face from the Bryson Global website. It was the man from the cover of Forbes last month. It was James Bryson, the CEO, her interviewer, the man who held her entire future in his hands. And he was hugging the woman she had insulted. He was her brother. Oh no, Caroline whispered, slumping back into her seat. Oh no, 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 no. The pilot's voice came back on. All right, folks, thank you for your patience. You are now free to deplane. Welcome to London. The cabin began to empty, but Caroline Beaumont couldn't move. She was paralyzed by a dawning, sickening horror. The woman she had called a tacky, classless lottery winner was the sister of one of the most powerful CEOs in Europe, and she had a final round interview with him in less than 24 hours. Caroline Beaumont stumbled through Heathrow in a daze. The normal frustrations of travel, the long walk from the gate, the serpentine line at immigration, the agonizing wait for her luggage, were amplified into a special kind of hell. Everywhere she looked, she saw the Williams family. Not literally, of course. They were long gone, whisked away through a VIP channel by the airport director and her CEO brother. No, she saw them in her mind's eye. She saw Elena's cold, appraising stare. She heard Marcus's deep, disappointed voice. She heard her own voice, shrill and ugly, saying, "Your kind of people." She took the Heathrow Express into the city, the train rattling through the dark, but she saw nothing. She checked into her hotel, the Savoy, a room Bryson Global was paying for. The luxury of it, the plush carpets and the stunning view of the Thames, felt like a mockery. She sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, her head in her hands. What do I do? What do I do? She had options. 1. Deny. Go to the interview tomorrow and pretend it never happened. Hope they don't recognize her. Stupid. Of course they would recognize her. Her name was on the flight manifest. Caroline Beaumont, seat 3D. 2. Apologize. Start the interview with a preemptive, groveling apology. Mr. Bryson, I am so embarrassed. I was drunk. I was stressed. It's not who I am. Risky. It was an admission of guilt. It would frame the entire interview. 3. Run. Cancel the interview. Claim a family emergency. Fly back to New York and pretend none of this ever happened. Cowardly. And she would lose the job for sure. She would lose everything. She splashed cold water on her face. Think like a VP, Caroline. Manage the crisis. She chose a version of option 2. She wouldn't grovel, but she would be contrite. She would own it. Yes, that's what corporate gurus always said. Own your failures. She would say, Mr. Bryson, I realize my conduct on the flight was unprofessional. It was a moment of weakness, and I've learned from it. Now, about the European market. It was weak and she knew it. Her phone buzzed. She jumped, her heart hammering. It was an email from Bryson Global. Subject, urgent, interview time change. Her blood ran cold. They were cancelling her. She fumbled the phone, her hands shaking, and opened the email. Dear Ms. Beaumont, due to a scheduling conflict, your final interview panel has been moved from 10 a.m. to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Please be prompt. We apologize for the inconvenience. Moved up, not cancelled. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. It was a test. They were testing her. They were moving it up. They wanted to see if she would crack. I'm not cracking, she said to the empty room. You want to play hardball, Bryson? Let's play. I'll be there at 9 a.m. I'll be there at 8. She spent the entire night in a feverish, sleepless haze, retooling her entire presentation. She tore out all the aggressive language. She added slides on diversity and inclusion. She looked up Bryson Global's charitable initiatives. She saw it. The Bryson Global Children's Trust, their primary benefactor, and the partner hospital, Great Ormond Street. She felt a cold prickle. A hospital. That woman. Elena. She was looking at scans of a brain. She was a doctor. A Dr. Williams. Caroline typed, Dr. Elena Williams, neurosurgeon, into Google. Her phone screen was flooded with results. Dr. Elena Williams, Johns Hopkins, pioneers new method for inoperable tumors. World-renowned surgeon to attempt miracle surgery in London. The Williams procedure. A new hope for children. Caroline felt physically ill. She fell back onto the bed, the horror of it washing over her in waves. She hadn't just insulted a lottery winner. She had insulted a genuine, world-famous, life-saving hero, and she had done it in front of her brother. I'm finished, she whispered to the ceiling. I'm so finished. Across town, in a quiet, private wing of Great Ormond Street Hospital, Dr. Elena Williams was scrubbing in. She had not slept. She had come directly from the airport, reviewed the new scans, and was now preparing for the 14-hour surgery that awaited her. Marcus and James stood outside the OR prep room, drinking bad coffee from a vending machine. You're sure you're okay, man? James asked. I'm fine, Marcus said. It's Elena I worry about. That kind of poison. It gets under your skin, you know? Makes you doubt just for a second. Well, it's done, James said, his voice hard. What's done? Caroline Beaumont, her 10 a.m. interview? It's been moved to 9 a.m. Marcus looked confused. You're still interviewing her? James smiled, but it was a cold, thin smile. Oh yes, I'm absolutely interviewing her. I asked HR to move it up. And I've invited a few extra people to the panel. James, what are you doing? Elena is in there, about to perform a miracle. She is fighting for a child's life, after being told she's not good enough to even sit on a plane, James said, his voice low and intense. That is what our family does. We build, we heal, we save. He crumpled his coffee cup and threw it in the bin. Tomorrow, James said, Ms. Beaumont is going to learn what my family does to people who try to tear us down. James, Marcus warned. It's not revenge, Marcus, James said, though his eyes gleamed. It's a teachable moment. It's a learning opportunity. It's corporate restructuring. He clapped his brother-in-law on the back. Now let's go get some more terrible coffee. It's going to be a long night, and an even longer morning. At 8:45 a.m., Caroline Beaumont walked into the lobby of the Bryson Global headquarters. It was a cathedral of glass, steel, and light. A massive 4-story waterfall cascaded down one wall, and the company's motto was etched into the marble floor, Edificamus Mundum Meliorum. We build a better world. Caroline had never felt smaller. She had spent a fortune on overnight dry cleaning for her interview suit, a severe dark grey Alexander McQueen. Her makeup was a mask of flawless corporate perfection. Her hair was pulled back so tightly it made her eyes water. She was the very picture of a high-powered executive, but inside her stomach was a churning pit of acid. Caroline Beaumont, here for Mr. Bryson, she said to the receptionist, her voice a perfectly modulated, confident alto. Yes, Miss Beaumont. They're waiting for you. 40th floor. The elevator ride was a silent, terrifying ascent. She rehearsed her apology. Mr. Bryson, about yesterday. A profound misunderstanding. I was not at my best. My admiration for your family's work is boundless. The elevator doors opened onto a hushed, opulent floor. An executive assistant with a tablet met her. Miss Beaumont, right this way. The panel is ready. The assistant led her down a long hall and paused in front of a massive, 20-foot-tall door of reclaimed oak. They're just inside. The assistant opened the door. Caroline stepped into the boardroom, and the world fell away. It was not a small, intimate interview panel. The room was full. At the far end of a table that looked like it had been carved from a single ancient tree sat at least a dozen people. Executives, board members, all staring at her. And at the very center of the table, at its head, sat James Bryson. His face was unreadable. To his immediate left sat Marcus Williams. He was not in his travel clothes. He was in a razor-sharp suit, holding a tablet, looking at her as if she were a particularly complex blueprint. To James Bryson's immediate right sat a woman Caroline didn't recognize, a stern-looking older woman in a tweed suit. But the seat next to Marcus, a seat that was currently empty, had a nameplate in front of it. Dr. Elena Williams, Bryson Children's Trust, Special Advisor. Caroline's rehearsed apology died in her throat. Her blood turned to lead. Miss Beaumont, James Bryson said, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. Thank you for coming. Please take a seat. The only other seat was at the far end of the table, a tiny, isolated chair facing the entire tribunal. It was a 50-foot walk. Her heels clicked like gunshots on the polished wood floor. She sat, her hands shaking so violently she had to clasp them in her lap. I see you've already met my brother-in-law, Marcus Williams, James began, his voice polite. He's the lead architect on our new European campus. A brilliant man. Marcus just nodded at her, his expression grim. And, James continued, you almost met my sister, Dr. Elena Williams. She was called away. She sends her apologies. A small, bitter laugh escaped Caroline. Called away? Yes, James said, his eyes hardening. She's been in surgery for the last, 18 hours now. Performing that miracle surgery you might have read about, the one Bryson Global is funding. She's a little busy to be here. A shame. She's our lead advisor on our entire $500 million healthcare initiative. He leaned forward. Which brings us to you, Ms. Beaumont. Your resume is impressive. Top of your class at Wharton. Aggressive moves at McKinsey. You're a shark. A killer. Just what we thought we were looking for. Mr. Bryson, Caroline began, her voice a croak. I must. But a funny thing happened yesterday, James said, cutting her off, his voice still terrifyingly pleasant. We had an incident on AA 108. You were on that flight, weren't you, Miss Beaumont? Seat 3D. Yes, she whispered. We have a zero-tolerance policy at Bryson Global, James said. Not just for racism, though that's a big one, but for bad judgment, for a fundamental lack of understanding of what we do here. He gestured to the woman in tweed. This is Fiona McAllister. She's our head of global compliance and, I suppose, character. Fiona spoke for the first time, her Scottish brogue like iron. Miss Beaumont, you saw a black family in first class and assumed they must be lottery winners. Is that correct? It was. It was a joke, a misunderstanding, Caroline cried, her composure shattering. I was tired, I was drinking. It was what you believed, Marcus said, speaking for the first time, his voice a low rumble. You didn't see a leading architect and a world-class surgeon. You saw your kind of people. You saw a stereotype. And you, Ms. Beaumont, were interviewing to be our VP of European Operations, a continent of hundreds of cultures, languages, and kinds of people. And you can't even handle one family on a plane. I can learn. I can change. I'll go to diversity training, she pleaded. It's too late for that, James said. This isn't a training issue. This is a character issue. He motioned to his assistant. You see, we were all set to discuss your plans for the Brussels office, but my brother-in-law sent me a little video last night, and I felt the panel should see it. The lights in the boardroom dimmed. A massive 20-foot screen descended from the ceiling, and Maya Williams's 45-second video began to play. The video was brutal. The angle from Maya's lap was low, pointing right at Caroline. The high-definition camera on the new iPhone captured everything. The splotchy, angry flush of her skin, the way she sneered the word tacky, the way her hand gripped the seat, her knuckles white, and the audio. The cabin noise was filtered out, and her voice was crystal clear. It's just so surprising to see your kind of people in first class, flying like lottery winners on a shopping spree. The dozen executives in the room watched, their faces ranging from stoic disgust to open horror. The video ended. The lights came up. Caroline Beaumont was as white as a sheet. She was openly weeping now, silent tears streaming down her face, ruining her expensive makeup. Please, she whispered. Please, I need this job. James Bryson stood up. He walked from the head of the table until he was standing directly behind her. She could feel the heat and anger radiating off him. You need this job, he said, his voice no longer pleasant. What about my sister? She needed to rest. She needed to be in a calm, focused state of mind before she held a 7-year-old's life in her hands. Instead, she spent the last 6 hours of her flight being disrespected, dehumanized, and tired. He walked back to the head of the table. My sister, he said to the room, is the finest human being I have ever known. My brother-in-law has designed buildings that will outlive everyone in this room. My niece and nephew are bright, kind, wonderful children. They are not lottery winners. They are the jackpot. They are the very definition of belonging." He looked directly at Caroline. "You, Miss Beaumont, you see value in dollars, in stock prices, in seating charts. We at Bryson Global, we value people. And you, apparently, are incapable of seeing the value of the people right in front of you." He closed his laptop. "Your interview is over. Your candidacy for this role, or any role at Bryson Global, is permanently terminated." You can't," Caroline stammered, standing up, her chair scraping. This is unfair. This is..." "Unfair," Fiona McAllister, the compliance officer, cut in. "Unfair is being judged by the colour of your skin, Miss Beaumont. What this is a consequence. Security will see you out." Two uniformed security guards, who had been waiting outside the door, entered the room. They didn't touch her, but their presence was absolute. Caroline, humiliated, her face a mess of tears and mascara, grabbed her purse. As she was escorted from the room, Marcus Williams said one last thing. "For what it's worth, Miss Beaumont," he said, not looking up from his tablet. "My wife and I didn't win the lottery. We are the lottery." Caroline choked back a sob and practically ran from the room, pushed by the invisible force of her own humiliation. She was so distraught she didn't check her phone until she was in the elevator, riding it down in shame. When she did, she saw 2 new emails. The first was from the Savoy. "Dear Ms. Beaumont, per the request of Bryson Global, your corporate rate has been rescinded, and your booking for the remainder of the week has been cancelled. Please be checked out by 1 p.m. They were kicking her out of the hotel. The second email was the killing blow. It was from American Airlines. Subject: Notice of disciplinary action. Passenger conduct. Dear Ms. Beaumont, following a formal complaint from our cabin crew and multiple passenger witnesses regarding your behavior on Flight 208, we have completed our investigation. Your conduct, which included verbal harassment and the use of discriminatory and racist language, is a severe violation of our conditions of carriage. Effective immediately, your A Advantage Platinum status and all associated miles have been revoked. Furthermore, you are hereby banned from all future travel with American Airlines and our One World Alliance partners, pending a mandatory review and a formal apology. She was jobless, she was homeless in a foreign city, and she was grounded. She couldn't even fly home. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Caroline Beaumont, the woman who had everything, collapsed against the marble wall, finally and completely broken. The massive oak doors of the boardroom clicked shut, sealing Caroline's exit and leaving a profound, heavy silence in her wake. The dozen executives and board members, who had been a silent jury, began to murmur among themselves, gathering their tablets and portfolios. Fiona McAllister, the head of compliance, was the first to approach James and Marcus. "A necessary, if unpleasant, piece of business," she said, her Scottish accent clipping the words precisely. "For the record, Mr. Bryson, you had my full backing. The reputational risk of employing someone with such unstructured biases is catastrophic in today's market. She wasn't just a poor culture fit, she was a liability walking." "Thank you for coming on such short notice, Fiona," James said, shaking her hand. "Not at all," she replied. "We build a better world, James. Can't do that with rotten timber." She nodded at Marcus. "Mr. Williams, a pleasure. My compliments to your wife on on everything." As the room emptied, Marcus finally let out a long, shuddering breath. He loosened his tie and sank into one of the plush leather chairs, staring at the empty seat at the far end of the table. "You're quiet," James said, sitting down next to him. "I don't know, James," Marcus said, rubbing his temples. "Part of me feels good, vindicated, but another part of me just feels sad." "Sad? For her?" "No, not for her," Marcus clarified, looking up. "Sad that it's necessary. Sad that Elena has to be that brilliant, that flawless, a literal life-saving hero, just to be seen as belonging. That woman, Caroline, she was poison. But she's a product of a world that still, in its quietest, darkest corners, agrees with her. And we didn't just beat her, James. We annihilated her. Does the punishment fit the crime?" James was quiet for a long moment, staring at the London skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "When Elena and I were kids," James said softly, "we were visiting our grandparents in a different state. We were maybe 9 and 11. We went to the local country club pool. Our grandfather was a member. We were the only black kids there." Marcus just listened, knowing this story. "A woman," James continued, much like Caroline, "complained, said we were making her uncomfortable, said we didn't belong. The staff, they asked us to leave, in front of everyone. I remember looking at Eleanor. She wasn't crying. She was just frozen. She had this look, the same look I saw on her face on Maya's video. This tired, broken-hearted fury." He turned back to Marcus, his eyes cold steel. "That night, I swore I would never be powerless again. I swore I would build a world, a company, a fortress, where people like that woman and people like Caroline Beaumont could never, ever touch my family again." He stood up. "So no, Marcus, it wasn't too much. It was a message. It was a corporate restructuring. It was balancing the books. She didn't just insult my sister, the world-class surgeon. She insulted that 9-year-old girl at the pool, and that girl deserves her justice." Before Marcus could reply, James's personal phone, the one he kept for family, began to ring. The name Elena lit up the screen. James snatched it up, his hand visibly shaking. The CEO mask was gone. He was just a brother. "Elena, how is she?" "Oh, thank God." James slumped against the table, his head bowed. "She's stable? The vitals are good? You got it all? The whole thing?" "Elena, you're amazing. You're my hero. I'm so proud of you." He listened, a small, genuine smile finally breaking on his face. Yes, I'm with Marcus. He's right here. We handled it. The meeting is over. It's done. Don't you worry about a thing. Now you get some rest. I'm serious. Go to sleep for a week. I love you." He hung up and looked at Marcus, his eyes shining with unshed tears of relief. "She did it," James whispered. 19 hours. She got the whole tumor. The girl is in recovery. Prognosis is excellent." Marcus Williams, the man who had been a pillar of strength, a bulwark of calm, finally broke. He didn't make a sound, but he put his head in his hands and let the wave of overwhelming relief and pride wash over him. His wife was a miracle worker. His wife was safe. His family was safe. "Come on," James said, clapping him on the back. "Let's go be there when she wakes up. I'll have my driver take us." The scene across town was a stark, brutal contrast. Caroline Beaumont, having been escorted from the Bryson Global headquarters, didn't make it to the elevator before she saw the first email. The one from the Savoy. "Your corporate rate has been rescinded. Booking cancelled. Please be checked out by 1 p.m. The public humiliation of the walk of shame through the Savoy lobby, her luggage in tow, was just the beginning. She found herself in a place that was the very antithesis of her life. A dingy, £20-a-night motel near Gatwick Airport, a 40-mile bus ride from the city. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and old curry. The bedspread had a burn hole in it. The Wi-Fi was an extra £5, and it barely worked. This is where the real karma began to land. She sat on the lumpy bed, her Alexander McQueen suit now a symbol of a life that was already gone. She was frantic, a cornered animal. She opened her laptop. First, she tried to call her mentor at McKinsey. It went to voicemail. "Robert, it's Caroline. Look, there's been a situation with the Bryson job. A misunderstanding. Call me." He wouldn't call back. The jungle telegraph of the high finance world was too fast. The story would be out before she finished her call. She insulted James Bryson's family. She was radioactive. Next, she tried to book a flight home. She went to the American Airlines site, her fingers flying. New York, JFK, first class. Tonight, the site returned an error. "Your account has been locked. Please contact customer service." She called. After 40 minutes on hold, listening to an insulting loop of Uptown Funk, a service agent came on. "Yes, Miss Beaumont, I see the note on your file." Oh dear." "What?" Caroline snapped. "Ma'am, per the notice, your A-Advantage Platinum status is revoked. All 1.2 million of your miles are forfeit. And it says here, you are permanently banned from travel on American Airlines and all One World partners. That's British Airways, Qantas, Cathay Pacific, Japan Airlines." Caroline dropped the phone. It wasn't just a ban from one airline, it was a ban from the entire alliance. A huge, critical portion of global travel was now closed to her. She was grounded. Panicked, she went to a budget travel site, a name she'd only ever seen in pop-up ads. She found a flight on a no-name Eastern European airline. It was $2,000, one way. It left from Paris. She'd have to take a bus to get there. It had 3 stops, one in Kiev, one in Dubai, one in Iceland, before finally landing at a tiny airport in New Jersey. The total travel time was 52 hours, in a middle seat. She put in her corporate card. Declined. She tried her personal card. Declined. Frantic, she opened her banking app. Bryson Global had already contacted her bank. The email she'd missed from HR. "Due to the circumstances of your separation, all funds advanced for travel are now due. Your signing bonus is rescinded. A bill for the hotel and travel will be forwarded." They hadn't just fired her. They had financially gutted her. She was trapped, almost penniless, in a foreign country, in a motel room with a flickering fluorescent light, holding a phone that was suddenly filled with bad news. She saw a trending story on her newsfeed. London's miracle. Dr. Elena Williams saves child in 19-hour impossible surgery. Caroline let out a sound. A dry, hacking sob of pure, unadulterated despair. She threw the phone against the wall, where it hit with a dull thud and slid down the peeling wallpaper. She was alone, in the dark, with nothing but the consequences of her own actions. 3 days later, the Williams family was back at Heathrow. But this time, they weren't in the lounge. They were in the Windsor Suite, the airport's private, ultra-exclusive diplomatic lounge, as personal guests of the airport director. Dr. Elena Williams was a hero. The family of the little girl she'd saved had met them, a tearful, joyous, life-affirming encounter that had put everything in perspective. They were flying home, in first class. As they boarded, a different flight attendant greeted them. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, her eyes wide. "You're Dr. Williams. We all read about you. Our whole crew. The captain, he'd like to shake your hand." The captain, a silver-haired man, came out of the cockpit. "Doctor," he said, taking her hand in both of his. "It is a profound honor to have you on my aircraft. Thank you for what you do." Elena smiled, a real, warm and rested smile. "Thank you, Captain. It's an honor to be here." They settled into their pods. Leo immediately found his games. Maya was already editing her London vlog, which was now less about travel and more about her aunt, the superhero. Marcus leaned over to his wife. "You okay?" Eleanor was looking out the window as the plane pushed back. "I'm better than okay. You know, for the first few days, I was just so angry at that woman, at Caroline. But I'm not anymore." "You're not?" "No," she said, turning to him. "I just pity her. She lives in a world that is so small. Her whole sense of self-worth is built on who she can exclude, who's in, who's out, who belongs and who doesn't. And in the end, she just excluded herself." She took his hand. "Our world is so much bigger. It's filled with you, and the kids, and James, and that little girl who gets to go home to her parents. That's our world. She can't touch that." The plane took off, climbing high above the clouds, a silver streak heading west. They were a family, flying home. They were, in every sense of the word, the lottery winners. That's the story of Caroline Beaumont and the Williams family. It's a powerful, real-life reminder that you truly never know who you are talking to. The person you look down on, the person you insult, the person you assume is a lottery winner, might just be the one holding the keys to your own future. They might be a world-class surgeon, a brilliant architect, or just the sister of the CEO who is about to interview you. This story shows that character is destiny. Caroline's prejudice, her arrogance, didn't just cost her a job, it cost her everything. And the Williams family, by handling it with dignity, strength, and a little bit of help from family, proved that true success, true class, has nothing to do with your seat on a plane. What did you think of Caroline's karma? Was it too much, or was it exactly what she deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories about hard drama and powerful twists, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. We have new stories every week, and you don't want to miss a single one.